All right, hello, and welcome to anybody who's watching. My name is Brian, and this is my very first live streaming from home that I'm doing in public. Usually, I stream for my students when there are any topics that they want me to cover, and we can't meet face to face, which we really can't do these days. But I wanted to do some live coding sessions where it's just me doing some programming of whatever whatever interests me or whatever I think is maybe interesting for you. And if you've got something that you maybe would want me to stream about too, then you can write it in the chat, and I will be more than happy to oblige if it is something within my skill set, of course. It's been over a month now since I've been able to go to work, but with me and my students, we've been able to communicate via video chats, and we've been able to talk on Microsoft Teams and on Slack or whatever Discord that we're using, and it's been fairly okay, but it's not really the same as if we're face to face in a large group that is able to interact with each other in a learning situation. But we muddle through and we try to do what we can. But before I go on and start to do anything more than just stand here and chat, grab yourself a cup of coffee, and I've got my tea, and let's just relax a bit together. If you're here, then say hi in the chat, and I'll give you a shout out and chat with you. So let's see who's actually here. Team T strong today. Oh, it's Natasha. I think it's Natasha, and thank you for following. Team T, what kind of tea do you drink? Black currant. Oh, that's way too flowery for me. I like my green tea. Strong green tea with lemon, and it's healthy. So Natasha, do you know if any of the other are going to show up, or is it just going to be you and me? Lemongrass? No, just lemon. Oh, okay, that's as per usual, but that's okay. What I was thinking to do today was to record a live stream where I'm going to program a contact form, which is something that you didn't say it. What didn't you say? The usual response. No, you didn't, but I did. That's usually what I get from those, isn't it? No, you guys aren't the worst. There are those who are worse at replying. Anyway, I wanted to do a live stream where I create a contact form which is in React, and don't be afraid of React because it's not as difficult as people make it out to be. It can actually be really easy. So I wanted to do a contact form with a lot of considerations into accessibility. And if you don't already know what accessibility is, it's where we consider people who are disabled in some form or another It could be that they are blind, so that they use, or maybe they have dyslexia, which means they probably use some sort of screen reader to see a website. And the screen reader reads everything reads everything for the person who's using it. And they can use arrow keys and the tab key and space and enter and stuff like that to navigate around the page. So we are going to create this form and consider all sorts of disabilities, and especially those who use screen readers, but also people with lessened cognitive sense. Maybe they have some sort of mental regression that makes them confused. They could have Alzheimer's. So we're trying to make sure that we consider as many disabilities as possible. It could also be that people are colorblind, or that they are that they don't have the best vision, so that they can't see contrasts very well. And people with a lessened cognitive ability means that they get easily confused, or that they won't be able to navigate around an interface that changes, or stuff like that. Let's see who else joined us. I think that was Natasha, and who's the other one in chat right now? Oh, thank you for hosting. That's so nice of you. That brings it out a bit more, I guess, the stream, so that more people can see it. Thank you, Natasha. Let's see, is it that anybody else is watching, or is it just my thing here doing a weirdo? I don't know. Anyway, I am going to switch over on my desktop, and then we'll just dive right into it. And any questions you have as we go along, feel free to ask them. And yeah, there were some a moment ago. I see it at 2 viewers right now, and I'm not one of them because I'm not watching myself. I'm not that egotistical, even though some might say I am. But if you have any questions as we go along, just write them in the chat, and I'll be happy to engage. So yeah, I've got this thing set up on GitHub, a template repository that anybody is welcome to use. And let's see, where is it? Well, it isn't part of it yet, but you can still learn something about how to put together components. Even though it's not React components, then the whole component approach to web design or web development, meaning that we design and create elements in as atomic bytes as possible. So, for instance, if I'm creating a contact form, then I want to create a field set, or it's a modular element. That's pretty much what it is. Yeah. But I have this React starter thing that I made, which has some dev tools and stuff implemented into it, and anybody can create a template from this, because it's set as a template repository. So all you have to do is just fork it, and then you've got your own version of this. It's on Brian's open source stuff on GitHub, and it's called the React Starter. So I will start out by making a new repository and create it from that template. And I'll create it over in my own account, and I'll call it. What should we call it? It's a contact form. It's like a widget sort of contact form that I can take out and use in other contexts, other websites. So what should we call it? If you've got any suggestions, just let me know. It's difficult naming things. That's why I'm asking you. I'm outsourcing the difficult task here. It's not the programming, it's naming the thing. We could be a bit hipster-like and call it contactor. There, contactor. I don't know if that's a bit silly. Contactinator 3000. No, but it's on a different organization. It's called Brian's Open Source Stuff with hyphens between. So if you go to github.com/Brian's Open Source Stuff, then you'll find it in there. Contactinator 3000. Yeah, let's call it that. All right. And I'll put my pointer focus on so you can see what I'm actually doing. Here, that's a bit better. Clone and download. Use SSH. Found it. Good. I'm glad you did. So, what do I have to do now? Let's open VS Code, which is my editor of choice. And I'll just, oops. I'll just clone it in. I hope that my keyboard isn't too loud, that it isn't destroying your ears or anything like that. Cloning Contactinator 3000. Just wait until I get mad at the code and start hammering my keyboard. All right, here we go. This is the repository, so everything I'm going to edit is inside the source directory, and I obviously need to cast TinyMac. Oh, that is not a good keyboard, and he types really hard on his keyboard. I've noticed several of my colleagues who do that. So let's install it. npm install. This is almost like starting up a Windows 95 PC. It takes just about as long. It would be really embarrassing if nothing worked now, but it seems that everything is working all right. So I've got 3 scripts down here ready to go, and it's the start script, which is the one we're going to use for development purposes, and then there's the build, which builds a production version in a I can't remember if it does it in a dist folder or a build folder. I completely forgot what I did there, but we're not going to use that today. This is just for when you want to push to production. And then there's the test for automated tests. So if we start up the application with npm start, then it should show up here. Perfect. And this dark section up here is just the dev tools. This won't be shown in production. Or if you go up here and write dev tools false, then it should switch off as well. That's not how I did it. I forgot. How did I do that? Feature toggle. That's not the one that does it. Is it this one? Load. Here we go. DevTools with a dash. Okay, so go into the URL and write DevTools false. Then we get the version without the DevTools, if that's what we want. But anyway, this is just a starter. So there's a head and a body which doesn't really say anything, but it's a starter repository, so we can change it up to anything that we want, and that's what we're going to do. So how are you, Natasha, with the installation? Are you anywhere close to where I am right now? Or did you even download it? Need to install. Okay. I am just going to show off a bit of the features that we're working with then. Everything is built with React, and the bundler is Webpack, and the interpreter or backwards compatibility thingy is Babel, and I've just set preset environment and the Babel preset environment and the Babel preset React, so that we get a bundle of JavaScript that should be fairly compatible to most browsers. This is just a standard setting. There's nothing fancy going on here. So if you want a certain compatibility, you can just add it to the Babel RC. Yeah, I think that was one of the things that Carsten introduced you to, wasn't it? I think it was. With Gulp, yeah? Babel with Gulp, I think that was it. We're going to do a bit more of that next week, but that's not what we're going to focus on. We're going to focus on APIs and databases, which is really exciting. That's something I always looked forward to teach, because I love that sort of back-end nerdery. Yeah. Okay, so this stuff here at the outer folder is just setup stuff. It's the Babel RC, and it's your package JSON, and it's your Webpack config. And I've just set up a regular Webpack for a future thing. I'm going to do different configurations for a development version and for the production version of the build, but I haven't gotten around to that, so there's nothing in there. But the Webpack, what it does is it bundles things for us, and we can choose what it should bundle and what it should copy into the production folder, the build folder, or into the development server, which is not really shown anywhere. Right now we've got a development server running and it doesn't show up anywhere here, but as soon as you do a build, as soon as you run npm run build, then you'll see a dist folder out here which has a slightly different sort of bundle in it. For example, it'll minify the stuff for you. It doesn't do that in the development build, which is helpful when you need to debug your stuff. But what we're doing here, yeah, if you ran npm install, then and it finished without any errors, there could be plenty of warnings, which there probably are, but you can ignore warnings. They're not really that important. If we'll look up here, I got like a gazillion warnings, but it's not anything important. This one is a Windows specific thing that you get for anything that uses the FS event, which React does, but you get the warning that it's not supported on this platform, but that doesn't matter, not in this case anyway. But the Webpack config is just a JavaScript file that exports an object literal. And let's look at the module, which is number one thing in here, which ends down here. There's a set of rules that's an array, and every rule set is an object literal as well. And we tell Webpack, what to look for. We should run a test on the files, and the files that we want to run this test on is .js and .jsx. JSX is the React's way of writing components, and some use them, some don't. I don't really use them. I just use JavaScript files, regular JavaScript files. And we want to not bundle anything that's inside your node modules folder. That's really important, because if you do that, you'll get a bundle that is in the best case scenario something like 50 megabytes, and in the worst case scenario something like 800 megabytes. So don't include your node modules. That would be bad. But we tell Webpack to use a loader for any JavaScript or JSX files, and the loader we're going to use here is just a loader called Babel loader. And if you look into your package.json, you'll see that the Babel loader is just an npm package that is installed along with everything else. And then we tell it to look for any .html files, and for that we want it to load using the HTML loader. And the HTML loader basically just copies the HTML file from wherever it found it to the dist folder or to the dev server. And we're doing the same with our CSS files. There's a style loader and a CSS loader. I don't actually know why we need both of them, but we do. Gotta ask the people who wrote it. And images, I want to move images as well. GIF, PNG, and JPEG. And this is a regular expression. Everything here is written with regular expressions. So anything that has .csn in it, and anything that has .gif, and yes, it's GIF with a hard G. That was a soft G. GIF, GIF, GIF. What? How do you say it? GIF or GIF? Which team are you on? GIF? Yeah, in English, GIF. This is a hot topic to get into a fight over. There are people with very opinionated people on this topic. So PNG and JPEG, and you can do the question mark after an optional character. So this one recognizes both JPG and JPEGs. And we're going to use the file loader, which basically also just copies a file from wherever it found it to wherever I want it to be. And then we're using a special loader, which is the @svgr Webpack loader for SVGs, because they need to be treated a little different than regular images. And what this one does is that it creates a React component out of an SVG. So if I have an SVG anywhere, which I do, up here in the icon thing, this is an SVG. It creates a React component for it, and I'll show you how I use it in a moment. But this is what this is the module, which is the basic stuff, and you could just have this one alone if you wanted to, and then have React create your HTML document for you. But I've got an HTML document already set up where I'm putting in a lot of different stuff. There's the reference for a manifest, and there's reference for some basic styling, something that's relevant for every single page that we're going to open, so there's no need to put it into a component on its own. There's the shortcut icon, which is also an SVG, but it doesn't work, and I haven't figured out why I can't get it to show, but never mind that. And there's a script reference as well, which is up here in my public folder script config, and that is a thing for the feature toggle stuff. Right. think that was the Webpack. Oh yeah, there's some plugins at the bottom, and the dev server is served from the public folder. That means that this folder is basically the root of our development server. So if I go into, is there a port somewhere around here? Yeah, if I go into localhost port 8080, then you will see whatever is in here, plus the files that get injected from the Webpack file. So your entire React component bundle, every component and all the functionality that comes from our React scripts is bundled into a single JavaScript package file, and then it's copied into your public folder in the cache at least, so you don't actually see it unless you do the final build. But let's take a look at the source folder. In the source folder there's the index, which basically just imports everything we need. We need the dev tools, we need React from the React library, we need React DOM, and we need the app script, which is up here. And then we are going to run, we're going to have a function that loads the thing that loads our application, and it puts our application in an element that has the ID app. So up in public, let's see where that is, and that is right here. I've got a div with the ID app. So everything we are going to create is created inside this div. Right. The app itself is a fairly simple thing. In order to make a in order to make a React component, we need to import React, and we don't actually need, for other components we don't need to import React DOM, but for this one we do, because we use it down here to render it. But we're going to include all the components that we make into this. So what I'm going to do now is go into source and then create a folder for my component. And the first component I'm going to make is a form input field. So I'm going to call it that, form input field. And I'm going to put it inside the source folder. And I'm going to make an index file inside that, which makes it a bit easier to import it and we'll get to that a little later. But in order to just get started, let's do import React from React, and then just export default function. Oh, and it needs a name. Form input field. Oops, field. There. And I just want this function to return some HTML. And the first thing we can do is want it to return anything that's inside these two parentheses. I just want to return a div with an input inside, and in React, if there isn't a close tag, you have to end your tag with a slash here instead of, otherwise it'll do, if you don't do that, then it'll do this, and that's wrong, so you can't do that. So this is just an input, and we can set the type of it to text, and we can give it a name, and what else? Nothing else, nothing for now. So this is our component, which just returns this stuff right here. So if I go over to my app again and I import the component that I just made, form input field from there, then I can use it wherever I want to. I can put it, let's just put it in the header. Like that. All right. Let's see what that looks like. See, now I've got my form input here. And it doesn't really do anything right now. So we want to add some sort of functionality or some sort of configurability. So we're going to get the props, which is just short for properties. So we're going to get the properties from the element where it's instantiated, and it's instantiated over here. Right here is where it's instantiated. We're going to get the properties from this instantiation, and then we can use those properties down here. For example, we can give it a name from the props name, and then if we go out to our form input field over here, we can just add a name property or attribute, and then call it, what should we call it? Name. Now if we look at the field out here, now we can see that name is name. Let me just zoom in a little bit. There. Name is name. So we can now add a bunch of different fields, and we can do stuff like this. Camera was in the way. Oh, sorry, I can switch it off so you can see it. It says right here that we've got our input text and then name, just as in the script I just made. And if we look at the other ones, then it should say email and name, because I didn't change it yet. Website. Like that. All right. We've now got 3 different fields here. That is the type text name, type text email, type text website. And this is the very oh yeah, by the way, the reason I do the div around it is to get it to be a block element, because if I don't have the div around it here, then out in my HTML it would be next to each other in one long line, and that's not the look I want. I want every field to be on its own line. So let's add some more functionality. Perhaps we don't want it always to be text here. Maybe we want it to be whatever we put in the props as the type. So we can now say type, and for name the type should probably just be text. I don't know if there's, I don't think there's another way to do this. For name, don't think there's a type name, don't think so, but there definitely is a type email, which is important for people who use their cell phones. If you ever experienced having to fill out a form on your phone, then you've probably noticed that sometimes if you have to fill in your email address, the layout of the keyboard on your phone is a little bit different. There's a .com button or key, and there's an @ key available without you having to search for it. It's right there in the interface. And the same goes with the type password, which makes numbers visible right away, so you don't have to look for those numbers, because a lot of people have numbers in their passwords. So for these people, we should definitely help them have an easier time around navigating our site with the type. So type text is okay for stuff that is just text, but as soon as we use something that is a very specific format, for example email, and we know that there are symbols that we need to use, then definitely use that type. Also, some password managers look at the type of a field to fill in username and password. So and the same goes for website. If you want to fill out a website, you can use a special type here. And I've actually forgotten what it is, but we can look it up. This is what everybody does who is a web developer, by the way. We can't remember everything. Can't remember everything. So we just look it up to see what we'll get out of this. I think some more people have joined the stream, and say hello if you've joined, and let's get engaging a little bit. But input type. Type. Let's look at the MDN website for that. Type date, time, image, number, week, date, time, telephone, button, should be more. Hidden, range, text, button, radio, email, search. Oh yeah, the search one is really nice too, because it has it just has I know at least one of the people joined. Who is it? Tell them to say hi. It's not secret. It's not dangerous to join and say hi. Where is it? Oh, URL. I forgot whether it was website, homepage, or URL, but it's URL. So you have to actually type in something that is URL formatted, and we can see what that looks like. But let's first have a look at the website and how it looks now. Now we've got our type text name, and we should have type email and type URL. So now we have 3 different fields made from the same component, but that we can... Who is that? Netrath. Who is Netrath? That's an awesome name. There's another TV viewer and a teen. Mr. Falcuro. Who's Mr. Falcuro? Say hi in the chat. It's probably AFK. Who is it? Anybody I know? Oh, yeah, okay. He just clicked the button and then he went to the toilet or to get a smoke or whatever. Oh, I don't know. Does he smoke? I forgot. But this is an easy way to get... Probably his cat. His cat smokes? Hope not. But this is an easy way to create a single component that you can use in different ways. So now we've got a way to do that. But I want to bring in some more functionality. I want to make it into a full-fledged component that has a label, a hint text, and a status text. Like if you filled in a field incorrectly, or there's another error with that field, then there should be a little status text under it that says whatever it is that's wrong. So instead of just having this stuff like it is here, I want to add some more stuff. And one of the important things is the label. And the label is quite important, because for people who use screen readers, this label is what is read to them, and we have to make sure that the label describes well enough what it is that you're supposed to do with the field that it describes. So I just want to put in here props name, like that. And probably over here I should do something like or label. Maybe I should actually make this label. Yeah, I'm going to make this label. But we need to tell the screen reader and the HTML document that this label is for this specific input, and we do that with the for attribute. But because this is React, we can't really use. How rude! Hello, Mark. Welcome to the chat. Oh, you're winking at each other now. Yeah, okay, I see what's going on. But because this is the this is basically JavaScript that we're writing, we can't use the for element like this because for is a reserved word in JavaScript. I believe that's why we can't use it. So we have to use the HTML4 attribute, and we're just going to put in. Yeah, we're going to use name here, props name. So it puts the name in here, and then over here we're going to do an ID, because the for attribute points to the ID. So whatever is written here also has to be written down here. That's how labels identify the input fields that they're for. Oh, I forgot to switch on myself. Now you can see me. Hello. That was props name. Right. So now I can go over to my app here and I can add a label. And let's just call this one your full name. And down here, label your email address. And I'm being a bit verbose because we want to help our users the best way we can. So don't be ubiquitous, or whatever that word is. Don't be vague in what the input field is for. Be very specific. Help your users out as much as you can. It's important. And we can say your website address. Oh, I should probably capitalize each word, just like I did with the other ones. So in our website now we have label, and if I click the label, then it activates automatically the field that it belongs to, and I can do that with all of them. So I click your email address and this field activates, and I can do that the whole way around. And let's see if my tab works as well. It does. I don't know if you can see this, but there is a highlight around the input, and it's blue, so it's kind of difficult to see. It should be, Mark. You can watch it on Twitch, and I might upload it to YouTube as well later. So thanks for joining, however briefly, and have a nice day. We'll be working a bit with the thank you. We'll be working a bit with the outline at some point later, but not just now. The important stuff right now is to know that our input works with our label. So you've probably played around with placeholders like this, where we write an example, and I could say John Smith. Wow, There we go, John Smith. And then on our website we now have nothing because I wrote it the wrong place. Of course I need to do it over here. Now we've got a placeholder here. The problem with placeholders, which a lot of people are happy about, but I am not, and I will explain in a moment why I'm not happy with it. But the problem with the placeholder is that as soon as you start typing, it's gone. And you have to delete what you just wrote to see what the placeholder is again. And for some people, this is a cause of confusion, especially if you have a really large form, web form that has a lot of fields and you're not exactly sure what to type in one of the fields, but you hit send or submit on the form, and then you get an error back. And then you're like, wait, what did I do wrong? Because you can't see what the placeholder tells you. And the placeholder might have the hint you need to fill in the field correctly. So if you can't see that hint, then you're not helped. So instead of having the placeholder here where it disappears when I start to write, I want to keep the placeholder outside of the field. So instead of placeholder, I'm simply going to create a paragraph element here. It could be span, it could be paragraph. It's not really all that important right now. And I'm going to give it a class, which we need a bit later to style. That is not at all what I wanted to write. Wow. Stop acting up. Thank you. Props, and then hint. So over here we can now add another attribute, hint, and then we can write whatever it is that we need to help people get a better understanding of what they need to do with this. Write your first name and last name here. Middle names are welcome as well. Or whatever you need to write to make it more clear for your user what to do with the form. So now you have your full name, which is the label. So we click the label and then the field is activated, and we have the hint section here as well. I am going to get rid of the center thing, I think, or no, I'm not gonna worry about the look right now. I'm gonna do that later. Right now I'm just concerned about functionality. So we've got the label and we've got the hint, and now people are more function first, pretty later. Exactly. Make it work, make it pretty, make it fast. I remember who said that. Who said that? Make it work, make it pretty, make it right. Make it work, make it right. Make it elegant, make it pretty, make it fast, make it pretty. Is it this? Who said it? Flash. Oh, in a flash. There was somebody coined this phrase. Dwayne Camps. No. No, it wasn't him. He said it many times before. I know he has said it, but it wasn't he who coined the phrase. But that's not important. Your full name, and write your first name and last name here. Middle names are welcome as well. And then we know what to do with this. So I can write my name here. And then I can trust that now I've done it correctly because the hint is still visible. So even though I get an error message later, then I will still be able to see what I'm supposed to do without having to delete everything and write all of it over again. So what have we done so far? We've got our label, we've got our hint thing. Oh yeah, just gonna add some classes for this. Form input container. No, that's not. I'm just gonna call this form input, and then I'm going to do this form input label. Oh wait, isn't it just 1 and 2 now? Oh, I can't remember. Do you remember, Natasha? How is the BEM paradigm now? How is it? Is it 1 or 2 underscores? I forgot. Yeah, it's just 1 now. So if we have an modifier, then it's 2. So we could do this if we had, or danger or whatever. But it's just 1, yeah. Form input hint and one if modifier. Oh, are you sure? Let's look it up. Get bem.org, I think. Either .org or .com. Can't remember. Probably .com. Here we go. .com. Okay, introduction. How do we set it up? An example. Let's look at the example. Oh, that's... Oh, they're still using dashes on this side. 80% Carsten is going to fry me alive. I am going to tell him. So now you know. You have been warned. Outdated version. Yeah, it's very outdated, but I remember I have seen it differently before. All right, let's just go with this, what we're doing here. 1 and 2. So 1 to show the block element, and then if I need any modifiers, then I'll do 2. I can always change that if I find out that I was wrong. Form input, and this is the input. Oops, input. Okay, we've got our label, our property stuff, hint stuff, there it was, and our input. And now I want to make a place where we can put a status message, and I'm not going to pull that in from the from the properties. I'm going to make a function that creates a status message in this component. So that functionality is going to be up here. And let's just call it status. And oops, let's actually set the status. And we're going to do that with I'm going to use let. We're going to do that with a React hook. Set state. So I need to pull that in from up here. Use state is what it's called, not set state, use state. And let's see, status and set status is use state, and status is nothing to begin with. So that just prints nothing down here, or it should print nothing down here if I'm Nope, there was an error. What is this? Oh. There. Right. So there's a p tag, a p element, paragraph element right down here under the input that we can't see. But if we go into the inspector, then we should be able to see the empty paragraph element right here. And it should be there for all of them. So, oh, not the SVG. Yep, it's on all of them. Great. All right. This is a React hook that is used for creating state that you can have, and the state is it could be something as simple as your dark light theme turned on, turned off, which is a state, and it just remembers the state as long as your React app is running. So as soon as you go up into your URL and you refresh, then the state is lost and you have to activate all your states again. But that's something for another time, I think, to discuss that. So I want to update the state as we type in the field. So let's see, how can we do that? Let's do a function update field. No, like that. And I want to first get what is in the field. So maybe we can do this. I'm not sure this will work. Or maybe it's event. It's probably event and then event target value. Target. There. So we're going to add an event on this, on key up, which means when we release a key from the keyboard, when we are typing into the field and we release the key, then this event is triggered. Update field, yeah. Okay, and then it should console log it just for now until we do more with it. So in the console, oops, go away, thank you. I am going to switch this off and then let's see if it is working. It is working, yay. It's working, it's working. That was a Paladins reference. Right. We've got a function now that will allow us to listen to what's being typed in the field, and we want to check what is typed and does it match what we want people to type. So let's see, can we listen in on the type here? I think we can. So if I were to type stuff over here, what would it go away? What would it tell me? Text. Okay, tells me this is text. Right, that's actually exactly what I wanted. So if the type is text, then we want to check whether or not this thing here matches, you know, stuff, because text is not that important. But when we come to email and URL and stuff like that, we need to check that the input is a certain format. So the text, I just want if event target type type is text, then do something with that. And we can say if, or maybe set status. That's this function up here that I'm calling now, and that's the one that we use to set the status, which will then be updated. So set status can just, I can do this, and then let's see what happens out here. We get error because I updated the status with whatever is in here, and then this down here gets updated as well, real time. So I want event target value dot length is more than 2. Then I want the message to be nothing, and otherwise error. What you typed is too short. Let's try this. Error. What you typed is too short. But as soon as I type something that is more than 2 symbols, then the error message disappears. So now we've got a label, we've got a hint that tells us what to do with this input field, and we've got an error message that tells us what we did wrong. And we can always do some stuff with some colors. Maybe this text should be red, so it catches the eye better, and it tells us red is usually something that tells us, oops, we did a boo-boo. Except for when you are colorblind, which is something that we can perhaps do something about. But before I continue anything now, there's something that's rather important to know, and that is if we have an element in our HTML where parts of the element updates after the page has been loaded, that means this stuff down here. This stuff refreshes and updates with a different thing, or it disappears whenever we do something on the page, but it's not there to begin with. And how do screen readers deal with that? Well, they don't, unless we tell them how to deal with it. And there's something called the Y-ARIA specification, which is something that we use to help people with disabilities, and it's the whole accessibility stuff. So if you're doing anything that has to do with accessibility, then you need to know this specification. You need to know what you can do to help people with some different sorts of disabilities. And the good thing is also curriculum. Yeah, you need to do it later, but I'm just going to chat on it now, and then you're the lucky one because you're actually watching this. Oh, we're getting to the top of the hour. Maybe we should take a little bit of a break now and get some coffee or some tea and stretch and do stuff. So yeah, let's do that. Let's take a break, and I'll explain some stuff about ARIA and how we can use that to help people. So Team T, definitely. Let's take a break for, let's say, 7 minutes, and then I'll be back. So do whatever you need to do in the break. Go to the bathroom, make yourself a cup of tea, do some yoga, whatever you want to do, and I will see you in 7 minutes. Cheerio. Welcome back. Oh, that was a needed break. Ooh, who else is? Is that? That's Mark. He's following me too. I didn't say thank you to him. That's my bad. I will do that next time. All right. We were talking about why ARIA and why it's important. So HTML alone doesn't confer enough information to the browser or to the user or to the screen reader about what's going on the website, especially not for websites that update or dynamically. Say, for example, a chat interface where parts of the site updates all the time. Whenever somebody writes a message in the chat forum, then the HTML is going to be updated, and there's not enough information on the web on the HTML technology alone to confer this information. Therefore, we have these ARIA attributes that we use to tell the screen reader or to tell other sorts of technologies what's going on. And for example, if there's this new message, should it be read to the person who's using the site, who's using a screen reader. And the one we're going to use is, let's see if we can find it here. Why ARIA Live? Maybe I should just wait. Was it down here? Invalid. No. Maybe I should just search for ARIA Live. ARIA Basics. Okay, maybe it's in there. What is why ARIA? This is, by the way, a very nice page to get a sort of intro to what ARIA is and how you can use it. And there's plenty of examples that tells us what we can do with it. So there's it talks about the roles and properties and states, different states that stuff can have. And let's see, practical. So signposts and landmarks, we already have that. There's the landmarks here, and dynamic content updates. That's the situation that we have. Say that we have this section where there's a quote that is being fetched from an API. So when the page loads, there's no quote, there's no random quote. But as soon as the random quote is fetched from the API, then it's injected into the HTML. But the screen reader doesn't know this happens. So what can we do? We can use the ARIA Live attribute, which tells the screen reader that in this section there's stuff going on that is being dynamically loaded, dynamically injected into the HTML content. And we can tell the screen reader how to behave with this content once it is updated. We can turn it off. That means the screen reader will not read the updates to the user. We can use polite setting, which means that the updates are announced to the user if the user is idle. That means if the user isn't doing other stuff on the website. If they're typing something, then they shouldn't be interrupted in that typing, for example. Or we can use the assertive, which tells the user right away, as soon as it is even possible, that there's an update, and it announces the update. So for our example, we are going to put the ARIA Live on the div that surrounds everything that we have. And we're going to use polite because we want to interrupt the user when they are idle, not in the middle of their typing, because that can be confusing. So we want them to finish typing, then they get the update. You typed something and it was wrong. Okay, I'll delete it and try again. So over here in our div, where we have some stuff here, we're going to put aria live. Is that even how we write it in React? Aria. It doesn't know it. Maybe I'll see if I get a an error or a warning, then I'll know. Aria live polite. So now, whenever this one down here changes, then the screen reader is going to politely announce the change, which is this one down here, to the user. It doesn't mean anything for our website out here. We can't really see anything. Ooh, I did class instead of class name. I should have caught that. We cannot use class, the word class in our JSX, which is the HTML in JavaScript. We can't use that because class is also a reserved word. Besides, class in JavaScript is class name, so we have to write that. I forgot that completely, so I'm just going to do that. Let's see, how many do we have there? Class name, there we go. All right. Oh, and I can add a class down here too. Class name, form input, and let's call that status. And then we can also add, and we can do this dynamically. We can add some stuff down here, but error, what you typed is too short, but the modifier that we're going to add is going to be this input, form input status danger. That's a nice one. Danger. All right, we shouldn't have any errors out here now. No, there are no errors, there are no warnings, so that means that everything in here works in our thing. And if I start typing something, oh, I stop typing, then it's announced. But as soon as I continue, then the announcement is not going to be there until I stop typing. And now it's not going to announce anything because, or maybe it will say, that depends on the screen reader, it might say that the message was removed or something like that, or I don't know how screen readers work exactly, but it'll announce something that lets the user know that the error message down here disappeared. Now that's one thing that we can do. There's also another one. We know because we can see it that this text here belongs to this input field. But the reason we know that this is because we've been trained to see that things that are close to each other are related to each other, and that's just that's one of the holistics about design that we learn to recognize. But if you're not used to that, or if you have some sort of mental disability that makes you confused when you see a lot of elements on the site, then you need some sort of help. So if I click this element, then I want to know which other element tells me something about this element. And we know that it's the hint, but we need to tell people that are disabled in some form that this text actually describes what's going on in here. And we do that with another ARIA attribute, and it is the one that's called described by. Let's see if we can find the example somewhere in here. Oh yeah, there's also the ARIA label. Maybe we should actually use that. I'll do that first. We already have the label text, that's props label, so I'll just aria label, and then props label, and then aria, it's described by, I'm fairly certain it's described by, and then in here it should say the ID for the hint element, so for this element up here, and that means this element up here needs an ID, and we're going to make that just like this. Hint underscore, and then what was it? It was we'll just use the name because name is usually unique in a form, or it is unique in a form. So we'll just take this and paste it down here. So now we should have this item described by this item. Let's see if there's anything going on over here. Aria described by hint name, and the hint is ID hint name. One way we can check this is in Firefox, at least. There's the accessibility test thing that we can go through our section, your full name, empty paragraph, label, text leaf, paragraph. There's no described by. That bothers me a little bit, because this down here should, maybe if I wrap it in a form. Let's just try it for fun. This is fun, haha. Just tidy it up and oops. There. What happens then? Right, start a form, and there's a section, and we've got a label and a paragraph, text leaf. Nope, doesn't do that. That annoys me a little bit. Let's look up described by. Let's see. Okay. Labeled by, described by dialog1 description, and dialog1 description is an ID, so we did it correctly. I don't know why it doesn't show up in any different way over here, why there isn't something that says this item here is described by this item up here. But apparently we did it correctly, so the screen reader should be able to figure this out. Yeah. Just gonna zoom back to normal here. Okay. So let's mess around for a bit with some now we've got the form input. Now I want to make a contact form component. So contact form, and then I want to put an index file into it, and then import import React from React. Yeah. And I want to import the form elements that I just made. Form input field, wasn't it? Form input field, yeah. From, we need to go one out and then enter that one, and then we can say export default, export default function, contact form, yeah. There we go. And let's just return all of these things over here. So I'm going to cut those and paste them into this. Oh, and I'm going to put a form around it. So like that. And we need a button. Buttons are important. Submit. Maybe we'll just call it button text, and we'll put it in as a property up here. So instead of importing the form input field and doing a lot of stuff with that, I will just import contact form. And then we can render it with the rest of the stuff that we have. Like this. All right. Contact form. Oh, it should say props here. Yeah, we can do some functionality on this too, but that's for another day. So when you press the submit button here, type submit. When you press the submit button, it should probably send a fetch request to an API or to an email service or something that makes it, that saves the message that you typed here. But that's for another day. Right, so we should have still the exact same form as before, but now it has a submit button. And if I submit, then we should see something up here change. Let's see. Name, email, website. So the form works. Now I want to style it. And to do that, I am going to go into the form input field and create a style sheet. And let's see, form input text align left. So we make sure that is what happens. And over in our form input field, we need to import the style sheet now. So import style CSS, and you can do this in React if you've got it. If you've got the proper configuration in your Webpack file, you can just import the style sheet like this, and then the styles that are in here are going to be applied to whatever you're going to return here. So let's see if that worked, and it did. Our form is now left aligned, except for the button. Is the button inside the? Oh, it isn't. That's right. It's outside, but never mind that. Let's see, what have we got? I'm just going to pull it over here and do this, and that should be, yeah, it's still visible. Good. Otherwise, I'll just do this. Right. We have the form input, then there's the label and the hint. The hint should be smaller, so let's just check that one out right away. Form input. Wow, I cannot type input. There we go. Label. Font size, I'm going to make it 85%, which is just 85% of the size that we're working with on the website. Let's see if that worked. That was the label. That's not what I wanted to do. It was the hint that I wanted to make smaller. There we go. So we've got 100% and we've got 85%. So it's not very small, but it's smaller, so it's not as important as the label, but it's still very visible. Another thing I want to do is make sure that I use the same font size and font type in the input field as the rest of the site. Otherwise, and I don't know if it's really that clear, but I'm using I think I'm just using Arial here. But if we look down here, it's if we used like Times New Roman here, then it would still be sans serif down here, and that's not what I want. I want to be able to use the same font in the input field as the rest of the site. So how do we do that? It's not hard at all. We'll just say form input and then the input field and font size, inherit, font family, inherit. That's it. Now we've got a bigger, it just got bigger because it's this size now. So whenever I type something down here, we can see that it's the same size as the one up there, and that just looks nicer in my opinion. Another thing I want to do is to create some space around what I'm typing here, because it's sticking up to the edge. It's sticking to the edge of the input field, and I don't like how that looks. So I'm just going to create a bit of padding, and we're going to do 1/2 EM on the top and bottom, and 1 whole EM on the sides, left and right. So, okay, that was perhaps a bit much. Let's see, what's this like? Yeah, it's too high still. Maybe something like this. Okay, that looks a bit better. Yeah. Still too much space out here. I'm probably going to do something like that. Oh, that's so much better. Right. Okay. Now, all the elements inside this div should be as wide as the form that it lives in. So I'm just going to say the label and the hint are already, because those are block elements, but the input field is not a block element. So we have to make sure that it's displayed that way, and we can do that either by doing display block or inline block, display inline block, and then give it a width of 100%. The input field is already inline, so without messing too much with, we could do just display block. It's the easier way. If I could type anyway, like that, right? What did that give us? Not a bloody thing, unless we do this. Yeah, now we're talking. Right, so now it's the width of the form that decides how wide our input fields are going to be. So if I were to go over into where is it? contact form. I'm going to create a style sheet for that one as well. I'm going to import it. Just gonna do it up there. Import style, and then class name, contact form, and then over here contact form, and set a width 50%. Then we've got a perfect 50% wide form here, and we could even do something like this, margin 0 order, which should put the form in the middle of the screen. Now we're talking, now we're getting somewhere. Okay, 50% is a little extreme, but let's just put it at, whoa, at 100% still. Not sure why it does that. Oh, that's the yeah, because I have padding here, I need to add box sizing. Box sizing. Wow. Border box. There we go. Yeah, that fixed it. No side scroll now. So now I'm going to make some media queries, because now we're going to make this contact form a bit more responsive. Add media, screen, and min width. Let's see. We're going from small to a bit bigger, so that's going to be 32. Yeah, 32. Let's just calculate that. Not with that one. 32 EMs times 16 pixels, that's 512 pixels. Okay. That's okay. And then we're going to do contact form width. Oh, at that size, it's still going to be 100%, so we're going to make it bigger. Let's see, we're going to make a breakpoint at, oh, I didn't put that with me. Right. 1024 pixels times 16. No, divided. Ugh. Oh my god. Clear. Go away. Hate calculators. I am not a math teacher. 1024 divided by 16 pixels, 64 EM. Okay. So we're going to do 64 EM. And then I want it to be only 80% of the width. And I'm going to make some more of these, so I'm just going to copy those. 64, let's say the next one is 96. And I want it to be 60%. And 128 EM is going to be 40%. Let's see what that looks like. Nothing changed. What? Did I do something wrong here? It just says with 100%. Did I not import it? I think I did. Import style CSS. Contact form. Class name, contact form. That's weird. Okay, let's have a look at different sizes here. See if anything happens and doesn't. That annoys me a lot because add. Oh, I'm zoomed in. Maybe that's the issue. Yep, there we go. Okay. So now we've got a form that is responsive to a certain degree anyway, and will get smaller and smaller in the width, so we don't get these humongous lines. And we could make the breakpoints a bit differently to make it fit better, but basically we've now made a contact form in React that is user friendly, that is accessibility friendly, and will look nice on different sizes of monitors and devices. So the only thing we need to do now to make this like the best contact form ever, so it lives up to its name, the Contactinator 3000, is to add some functionality, but I'm not going to do that today. That might be for next Thursday, I don't know yet, or if I'm going to do something else next Thursday. But I think for now we've been going for almost 2 hours. So Natasha, have you been following along? Are you anywhere near the same place with this as I am, or did you fall off the chair and died? I don't hope you died. Until 15 minutes ago. Okay, what went too strong? What went too fast? Sorry. I'm a Viking woman. What do I need to go over again? Was it all the CSS stuff? I think I have some DevTools missing. Do you mean in your browser, or like some of the things that I did with my inspector here? Yeah, the CSS is easy now. I'm not sure what DevTools you're talking about. Is it the responsive look? Because on if you're using Firefox, then just hit Control-Shift-M. That toggles the responsive look, so you can do the whole, and you don't even have to have that one out there open. You can just close it, and then you can still do this. I don't know if that's what you're talking about. The last part of the React part. The last part of the React part. What was that I did? I forgot what I did 15 minutes ago. Oh, it gave you some warnings. Oh, okay. Do you have any extensions installed, such as ESLint or ESHint? Because those, if you have them installed as part of your editor, then it's going to give you issues. Don't do that. I think it might be something like that. Oops. Or did you do a boo-boo? Did you type something differently? Ah, dope. What was it? Come on, confess. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. The linters that you install from the extensions here aren't always very good, especially if you're doing weird stuff like HTML in JavaScript. That's just not gonna fly with those linters. So that's actually not a very good idea to do. If you want to use any sort of linters, then they should be installed in the project, because linters are going to enforce some programming style rules that you are going to want to enforce in the project, in this project alone. And if you have other people coming in and working with you on that project on their own computer, they want to use the same linters, the same formatting rules as you use. Therefore, install the linters in your project instead of just in the browser, in the editor, because that's not gonna work out well for you. One way I've done this before, let me just see if I can find an example of this on my GitHub. Yeah, let's switch over to the desktop again. Probably have it in the open source stuff. In the Monolith app, possibly. No, that's not where it is. Robust Express app, possibly in this one. This looks, yeah. See, I am using ESLint and Prettier to. You can find it in Brian's open source stuff, and then it's called the Robust Express app, which is a project I did for last Hacktoberfest. I need a drink. Cheers. And for Twitch, it's tea. It's not alcohol. Don't worry. Yeah, but the ESLint is it's TOS. Yeah, exactly. No, but I'm using ESLint and Prettier in this project to enforce some rules, and it just requires basically that you install ESLint and Prettier, and you can see it. Let's see, in my dev dependencies somewhere here, I've got some ESLint stuff and Prettier here. And lint stage, that's something I use, so you're not allowed to stage stuff that doesn't lint, that doesn't adhere to the rules, the formatting rules that I set. So basically I just install ESLint and ESLint config Prettier and ESLint plugin Prettier and Prettier. And then yeah, it's more than that. Strict just does some stuff with injection, and it doesn't let you declare variables without any form of let me show an example. Oops. If you use strict, you can it's not allowed to declare variables like this. This is not allowed when you use strict. You have to have a variable keyword like var, let, or const. Otherwise, it won't accept it. And you can't assign variables once you have assigned them, especially not const. That is something that use strict will enforce for you. Also, there's the this function here, which is a rather dangerous function that I don't want anyone to use unless they really freaking know what they're doing. This one here lets you basically run OS commands on something like a Node server. If you've got a Node.js server running, and you want to create a directory, you could do something like this. Then it creates a new directory, but this also lets you do other dangerous stuff. You could, for example, you could do that. You could do that, which is definitely not something you want to do. Or have someone inject into your code that you do. And useStrict does something with the thingy in here, the string that you put in here, the command that you asks eval to do for you, so that it doesn't do anything that's dangerous. So that's what useStrict does. But Prettier and ESLint enforces some formatting rules, which means that, for example, I do my import React from React, and I can write it like that, or I can write it like that. You can enforce, or you can either encourage or discourage people from using the semicolons. There's also the whole discussion about tabbing and indentation. I am a big fan of using tab as your indentation instead of spaces, and the reason for that is that people who get your code base can decide how wide they want that indentation to be. If it's a tab that's being used, if it's spaces that's being used, then they have to manually insert extra spaces if they want the indentation to be wider. And for some people, especially people who have sight issues, can have a bit of a problem looking at some code where the indentation is not very deep. I don't have a problem with that, so I set my tab size to 2 spaces, but it's still a tab symbol that's inserted. You can see here, if I insert here, then I can only what do you call it? I can only select the entire thing. If I had inserted 2 spaces like that, then I can select the spaces individually. So the indentation is my personal favorite, but that's also a huge source of contention. That's something that people discuss very vehemently. I just think that the tab is more user friendly, and you can enforce that in your Prettier files. You're a tabber too. Okay. Don't save that. That was a messy thing that I just made. But then you, when you team tabber, but then when you've got your ESLint and the plugins needed for that and the Prettier stuff installed, then you basically just make ESLint RC and Prettier RC, which are the configuration files for ESLint and Prettier, and they basically just tell you how do you want your code to be formatted. And I use TypeScript ESLint recommended and Prettier recommended, which are just a set of recommended rules. And then no var requires. That means you're not allowed to use var. I switched that off because there are situations where you do need to use var. So I want to be able to do that. And no explicit any. That's a TypeScript thing, but that's just rules for what you're allowed to do in the code. And then Prettier basically tells you what are we going to do with your code, with the code. And then see here it says you're not allowed to use single quotes, semicolons. Nope, we don't need semicolons. Print width, that means you're not allowed to make lines that are longer than 120 symbols or characters, which makes for a better reading experience when you read down over your code, so you don't have to read really long lines. Plus, it also lets you easily have code side ordered like this without having to scroll too much sideways, because you can see this is a really long line. In my if I were following my own rule about 120, I would probably do something like this to minimize the line length of these things. Yeah, it's kind of like the licks count. Licks does not take into account how long the lines are, only how long the sentences are and how many syllables there are in the words per average. But it's kind of over there. This is just for a better way to you can see it's more than 120 lines. No, it's actually not. It's just because I'm zoomed in a lot. I think this line is only 91 characters. So yeah, that's what those two do. And if somebody were to fork this repository, they would have to follow those formatting rules that is set, and that has another very important what do you call that, implication. It means that the pull requests that I make are not going to be formatted individually by the people who are going to make those pull requests. If you were to fork this and you had a linter tool installed in your own editor, and it doesn't follow the rules I set, then it's going to run through all the code and format it differently, which means that your pull request is going to include every single file, every single line, because there's probably going to be changes on every single line, which means your pull request will be unfocused to what you did, and maybe you just changed 2 lines in one file, but you're going to make a pull request for all the files because your local linter did that for you. So if you use the same rules that I use, then your code is going to be formatted the exact same way as the original code is, and then the pull request that you're going to send to this thing is going to be formatted in exactly the same way it's supposed to be, exactly the same way as the original code is supposed to be. So that is the reason for not having a linter and prettier installed on your own device or in your own editor. Just use it on your what you call that, just install it with npm and set it up, and that's a very easy thing to do. I've also created in my package.json here, I've created some run scripts that does the whole, or did I? Oh, that's the wrong one. I would have some run scripts here, lint, for example. So you would write in your console npm run lint, and then the linter and the prettier thing is going to be run through and format all your code, and then you commit it and push it. Okay, let's look at the time. It is 6 o'clock. It's time for dinner. I am going to make some salmon tonight, I think. I have some salmon in my fridge, so that's what I'm going to make. And that's it for today. So thank you very much for hanging out, and I am fairly certain that I will be back next Thursday with another stream at the same time, 4 o'clock Central European Time. I don't know what the topic is going to be yet, but you can either write it in the chat if you have a topic you would like for me to run through, or you can tweet at me at Twitter at Brian Emilius. And I will see you next time, I hope. Thank you for hanging out. Have a great time. And I am out of here.